Hi guys, today we are going to be doing another ranking my last. Today I think I have 14 palettes, technically 16. 2 of them have been decluttered in my eyeshadow palette declutter. If you haven't watched those videos, I will link part 1 and part 2 up in the corner if you want to go check them out. And I'm pretty sure I decluttered 2 of them that I have in this pile or should have had in this palette because I can't find them. And I was like, that's gotta be why they're not, laying around, because I have them in my declutter pile that is just like away from me. So that's basically what we're doing today. And I have to admit that this might be one of the hardest rankings that I have ever done because I have been staring at these palettes for such a long time. And for some reason, like every time I put a palette in a spot, I feel like it just felt wrong, but it felt right at the same time. But then I felt like I shouldn't be putting it. It was really, really hard. That's all I'm gonna say. So I think we should just go ahead and get into it. If you are wondering what I'm wearing on my eyes today, I did film this look, but this palette is actually not going to be in this ranking. But I'm using the Blend Bunny, I think it's just called the Blends palette. This palette is so beautiful. They did send me this in PR after I played with the Dollhouse palette, which will be in this ranking. But so far I've done 2 looks with this, and like I said, I'm not going to put it into this ranking until I've kind of done a video with this, and I do plan on having a 3-look and review video up with this palette soon. So keep an eye out for that. My shimmers are from Cleona. I just wanted to play with some of my single shadows in my collection. So let's just go ahead and start on the bottom here because I definitely had some misses. So I will tell you about the palettes that have been decluttered. I don't know which spot they would have ended up in. I mean, the bottom 2 either way. So one of the palettes was the one from Unicorn Cosmetics. I will have a picture up on the screen. I did do a video with this palette and I just wasn't impressed. I didn't think the mattes performed very well. The shimmers were very blah and I just didn't have a good time with it, sadly, because everything else that I was sent from the brand, I've really been enjoying. Like, you guys have seen me use the brushes all the time, and I always get questions when I use these because they have like little angels on them, and they're just really, really cute, and I really like the brush set that they sent me. And I've also been using their lashes, which are really, really nice as well. Just too bad that the eyeshadow palettes weren't really, or the eyeshadow palette, I should say, wasn't really my thing. I just wasn't really impressed by the formula. The other palette that is going to end up in the bottom spot is going to be one from Catkin, and the only reason for this is number 1 is a very neutral palette. I will also have a picture up on the screen. Number 2, the formula is, see, here's what I said in my video. I said that it's not that it's a bad formula, it's just not a formula that is meant for someone like myself, because it is supposed to be very subtle, very soft, very effortless kind of makeup, but that is the way that they meant for those palettes to be. It's not that they're bad palettes, it's just that they're made for an audience that isn't me. Does that make sense? And for that reason, the palette that is officially in the bottom spot here, which is going to be the number 14 palette, is also from Catkin, and this is their number 7 palette. I did decide to keep this because I just really like the packaging on it, and I think this color story is a little bit more fun than the other one that they sent me. And I just want to have one of these in my collection still. Again, same thing with the formula. It's very soft. It's quite subtle. You can get a little bit of depth. It's not like terrible. It's not bad by any means. It's just, I just want a little bit more in my eyeshadows, and I feel like this isn't really giving me what it is that I want. So that is the reason why this ended up on the bottom. Again, it's not a bad palette. It's just not really what I'm looking for. Oh, also, I switched out my backdrop again. I'm sorry I keep switching it out all the time, but I feel like I've been in a little bit of a rut. I feel like I haven't really been happy with the way that things have been looking, so I ended up buying some new backdrops instead of the ones that I've had in my collection and been rotating with. And I feel like this is kind of like the vibe that I'm feeling right now, like kind of cozy, and I'm just over winter, and I didn't want to have like a spring backdrop, and I feel like I'm all over the place, but I think I'm gonna stick with this for a little while. I feel like the lighting looks really good with this backdrop as well. Let me know how you feel about this, because I feel like this is kind of like where I want to be right now. This is just kind of my mood. So let's go ahead and move into the number 13th spot. I'm going to have the numbers on the screen from now on just in case I mess it up. That way, at least I'm not going to say the wrong number for every single palette. So this is going to be this number right here. And for this number, it's going to be one of the Glamlite palettes that came in the Icy collection. And I'm going to rank the Cherry palette on the lower side of the 2. Mainly just because I feel like every single color in this palette is exactly the same. And I feel like they could have done so much better. But also the look that I did with this palette is honestly like one of my favorite looks that I've done in such a long time, but I'm also not a look repeater. So there's also that. So even though I get a look out of a palette that I absolutely love, doesn't mean that I'm going to go and do that same look again, because I have other things that I want to play with, and if I'm going to reach for this palette, it's going to be as a companion palette to something else. And I do sort of I guess I can't really say I rank all of these as standalone palettes, but the palettes that do have mattes and shimmers in them, I do tend to rank as standalone palettes. Obviously, there are some in this pile that are all shimmer palettes that I'm not going to use on their own, but it's just like a case-to-case basis. So the next palette is going to be the Blue Raspberry palette, also from the Icy collection from Glamlite, and I think this palette is really cute. It is a very monochromatic palette, and I've said before that I'm not really someone who gets inspired by monochromatic palettes because, like I said, I don't do the same look twice, and I feel like there's only so many looks I can do with this palette on its own, and it's definitely, again, going to be a companion palette to something else when I do decide to use this again. Next up is a palette here that I did not think would end up as low down on my list as it did. And this is one from Unearthly Cosmetics, and this is their Witching Hour palette. This was their Valentine's release? No, not Valentine's. Oh my god, I'm like on Valentine's already. This was their Halloween release, and here's what the palette looks like. This color story is absolutely stunning. I really enjoyed the look that I got out of this, but I think the thing that kind of held me back a little bit is that there's something about these square pants that I don't enjoy as much as their older format. I really like the formula in their round pants more than I like the ones in the square pants, and I find that a lot of the time their shimmers in the square pants just get pressed a little bit too hard, and they're just not as nice as I would like for them to be from Unearthly. Like, I'm so used to them having like these super smooth, buttery, just like wet looking beautiful shimmers, and I feel like these aren't really it. Like, it's very dry and, like I said, hard pressed, especially this one. And like, yeah, it's pretty, but it's just, I just don't feel like it's giving me what it is that I want from Unearthly. And like, these two shimmers are nice, but they're kind of on the sheer side. They do look really nice on the lid if you do pack them on, but this isn't really my favorite formula from them. So for that reason, even though I love the color story, it just had to end up lower. And I don't dislike any of the palettes in this pile, especially going forward, because all of these are really, really nice. The Glamlite palettes as well, super good quality. This palette is nice quality as well. It's like, if there is a palette in here that I talk about and you like the look of it, I think that you're going to like the formula if you watch my channel for a while and you know what I like. I think that you can't really go wrong with any of these. It's just I have to rank them somehow, and this is just where they all ended up. So the next palette here is also one that surprised me, and I really thought that when I bought this palette, I thought I was going to absolutely love it. But the thing is that every time I open this palette and I look at it, I don't feel the urge to want to use it. Like, I just want to reach for something else instead. And I can't really explain why that is, but this is the Gimme Glow Bad Witch Club palette. And I was so excited when I saw the sneak peek. I was so excited when I bought this. I was so excited when I did a video with this, but I haven't touched it since, and I just don't really have any desire to. And again, it's not like it's a bad palette. It's just, I don't know what it is about this color story that just makes me not really interested in using it. Because I really thought that with all of these like beautiful jewel tones down here and like these beautiful shimmers, I really thought that this would be a palette that I would want to be using a lot. I think maybe one of the reasons why I haven't been is because there's only 3 shimmers and they're quite dark, which I do prefer to have lighter shimmers in my palettes, and I am also not the biggest fan of pastels, and there are quite a few pastels in here. So I don't know, maybe it's just like the combination of everything put together that is just not really inspiring me in the way that I thought it would. Again, it's kind of sad because I really thought that I would like that palette more than I do, but I just don't feel myself wanting to use it. So the next palette is a palette that I thought that I had ranked before, but when I was looking through my thumbnails from before, just kind of trying to figure out which palettes that I had to rank that I hadn't ranked already, this one was one that I realized I only had in my yearly ranking of last year. I never did it in my ranking my last blah 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 palettes, and so I'm gonna put it in here even though I do feel like I've kind of ranked this already, but I mean, obviously not within this group of palettes, so maybe it makes sense to have it in here still. But this is the, I was gonna try to say the name of this palette and then I forgot what it was called. This is the new palette from Melt, the Butterfly palette. And honestly, I love this palette. I think it is beautiful. I'm so happy that I have it. I haven't used it a ton since I made my video, but I have dipped into it a few times for the mattes. The shimmers I don't really care about. Honestly, if I'm not filming and I'm not reviewing a palette, for the most part, I only reach into my palettes for the mattes, and then I will use my single shimmers because I just want to get more use out of them, and I feel like my singles collection is something that I love, but I don't get a chance to use as often as I would like because I'm always reviewing palettes. So when I'm not reviewing palettes, I do try to dip into my singles collection a lot, and most of my singles are shimmers. So that's just kind of where I'm at. So this has been a palette that I've been using for the mattes, and I think that the quality is fantastic. The next palette here is a little tiny palette from Dede's Signature, and this is a quad, and I love this little thing. I think this is just so cute. This is the Pumpkin Spice Quad. Again, like I said, from Dede's Signature. I will have all of my codes on the screen when I'm talking about these brands, just so I don't have to like mention it all the time. But I did get this sent in PR, and this is absolutely stunning. Again, I do feel like this, for me, is a companion palette, and I do think that this isn't for me a complete color story, but again, it's also just a 4-pan. So it's sort of like meant to be a companion palette in my opinion. But this is a palette that I can see myself bringing if I'm gonna travel. I can see myself using this along with other things. And this shade up here is one of the main reasons why I had to put it here. It's so freaking beautiful. This is the kind of formula that I'm just absolutely in love with right now. And this is a green to pink like duochrome with like a sheer base. It's so pretty. And I love this other shimmer in here as well. It's a beautiful, very, very metallic sort of, I don't even know how I would explain that. It's like an antique green. I don't know if that's the thing, but also just like the mattes in here are beautiful. So I love this. The next palette is one that maybe is going to come as a surprise, but also maybe not. But the reason I feel like maybe it's surprising is because of just how monochromatic it is. And I usually do tend to put the monochromatic palettes on the bottom, as you know. But this is the Frosty Flamingo palette by Sugar Drizzle. When I made my video with this, I will link that in the corner if you want to check it out. I do think that this is currently back in stock again. I could be wrong about that, but when I used this palette and I used this shade down here, which is called Pinkaberry, I had no words. And also, I just think that all of the other shades in this palette are really, really nice. The mattes from Sugar Drizzle aren't my absolute favorites, but they just have such amazing shimmers, and these mattes are totally workable. I mean, I don't think that they're bad. I just don't, like I said, they're just not my favorite. But oh my god, like some of these top shimmers here are just stunning. And like obviously I have shimmers like this in my collection already, but again, the main reason for this palette being so high is for this shade alone, and I think this shade is worth the price of the palette. Just saying. Next up is a palette that I gave sort of a meh, I guess, review, and again, it's not like this palette is bad by any means, clearly, since it is so high up on my my list here, but this is the new palette from It's Belle Cosmetics, and what I said in my video is that I feel like since there are 3 multichromes in this palette, and I have better multichromes in my collection, especially from Cleona and Terra Moons, I know for myself that I'm not going to be reaching for this palette for 3 of the shades, and that kind of eliminates like a lot of them. But also the rest of this palette is beautiful. So, you know, I still feel like I had to put it up quite high just because I do love a lot of these shades. This shade here didn't wear the absolute best on me, so I'm going to have to play around with like some different bases with this, but with a glitter glue, it literally just disappeared after a few hours. So maybe if I use some kind of a black base underneath or like some kind of a gel liner base, it's going to wear better. It probably will. So I'm probably going to you know, play around with this a little bit more, but I think this palette is beautiful, and there are some really nice textures and shadows in this palette, so I did feel like it had to be quite high up on my list, despite maybe not having given it the absolute best review. But when I compare this to the Break the Rules palette, it's just going to be really hard to top it. Next up is a palette that I just did a video with a few days ago. I don't know when this is going up, but I filmed a video with this a few days ago, and this is the new Sugar Drizzle palette, and this is their Butterfly palette, which has a very long name. So I'm just gonna call this a Butterfly palette as well. Here is what it looks like if you haven't seen it. I had such a good time with this. Like I said in my video, mattes aren't my absolute favorites. They are workable, but the shimmers in this make up for it. And there are 2 multichromes in this. It's this one up here and this one down here, and they are like honestly really, really, really nice. Or was it? No, it's the middle one. I swatched the wrong one. I was like, that one doesn't have a shift. It's this one. They are so smooth and buttery, and I don't think that you can see the shift. I mean, why would you? Because of studio lighting, there's no way. But just trust me when I say that they are really, really nice and metallic, very smooth, goes on really nicely, wear very well on me, and also just the rest of these colors are stunning. Like I said before, shimmers from Sugar Drizzle are perfect. So yeah, very, very happy to have this in my collection. The next palette is one that when I reviewed this, I was kind of like, you know what, this is nice, I like it, but I have better things in my collection, and I still have found myself using this a lot because I guess I like it more than I thought I did. And this is the new palette from Lethal Cosmetics, and this is their full multichrome palette. This can be sold as singles or as a palette, but I've honestly had a really good time with this palette, especially like these lighter shades here. I've reached into those quite a bit. The shade down here is absolutely stunning. You can buy this as a full palette if you want to, and I think you get a discount if you do that, but these are quite expensive, and this is a very expensive palette, so I wouldn't recommend you go out and buy all of these multichromes unless you feel like it's something that you're going to get a lot of use out of. Some of these multichromes are a little bit more on like the satiny side. If you don't like something that enhances texture, something that isn't super metallic, you're gonna love these. I wouldn't say that all of these are my favorites, but since I have been reaching into this palette quite a bit, especially for like this top row, it just ended up, you know, high on my list because it's a palette that I keep reaching for, and I feel like that is what like really tells me what it is that I like and what I don't like. So I'm super happy I have this. I'm super grateful that they sent this to me because I would not have bought this myself because, like I said, it's a very expensive palette and I have a lot of really nice multichromes in my collection already. But I'm obviously just really excited to have it in my collection because I've been using it quite a bit. So the top three, I'm so surprised at how I rank these because these are not really what you would consider to be my aesthetic, and when I kept putting them in here, I'm like, I can't put this high. Like, I can't put it this high. But then I looked at all of my other palettes and I was like, you know what? I really do like these palettes. And so the next palette that's going to be in the number 3 spot is the Blend Bonnet Dollhouse palette, which is their neutral palette that they came out with not that long ago. And I have actually reached into this quite a bit because these dark mattes here are just spectacular. I don't know what Blend Bunny has done to make such beautiful, effortless, pigmented, blendable, buildable dark matte shades. Like, it's truly magic, and I'm so happy I have this palette. I also really enjoy all of these shimmers. I think that they are beautiful. Like I said in my video with this palette, they remind me of a mix between Glamlite shimmers and Beauty Bay shimmers. If you don't like that kind of shimmer formula, I would stay away maybe if you don't want to have a lot of shimmers in your palettes that you don't really like, because that is the kind of shimmer formula that is in here, but I love it. I think it is beautiful. I think it performs so well. I've had such a good time using this palette, and I'm just really, really happy that I bought it. Next up is a palette that you guys are gonna laugh at me. You're gonna be like, Annette, really? Come on now. And I'm telling myself that because honestly, I'm like, Annette, really? Really, this is your second rank palette? Like, what is wrong with you? But this is the new, I'm like laughing at myself, but this is the new Neutral Wonders palette from Dede's signature, Neutral Wonder, not Wonders. But this is their new neutral palette that they came out with. I did get sent this in PR, and I've used it, and I keep using it, and I keep using it because I think the mattes in it are beautiful, the shimmers in it are beautiful, and I love using this palette along with other things. And I have such a good time every time I use this palette. And like, for me, I know I always say this, but if I can get a super deep and dramatic look and have a lot of like very dark mattes, that is what I really love. And I think that this palette is just beautiful for that because these last three here are so good. And I love these shimmers. They're so beautiful as well. Even though I don't always do like a full neutral look with this palette, I've been dipping into this palette so often, and it's just really, really nice quality. So thank you, Dede, for sending me this because I never in a million years would have bought this myself, but I'm so happy that I have it. And the palette that ended up in my number 1 spot, I think that if you've been following along and watching my last couple of videos, you probably know how much I love this palette. I don't know what it is about Plouise. I know I just gave it away, but I don't know what it is about her being able to come out with the most obnoxious, bulky, large, annoying packaging and still be able to make it up so high in my rankings, because the Plouise formula, man, it's just amazing. I just love it so much. So this is the Watch the Queen Conquer palette. I have a 4-look video up with this. I brought this on a trip traveling for the weekend. Like I said, I don't know when this is going up, but I was away for like 3 days and I brought this along with some other things. And it was perfect for traveling because I could set it on my desk like this. If I use just one side, I could easily use the mirror in here, which I didn't really use the mirror very often. I haven't even taken off this thing, but it was just perfect. Like, honestly, It was a great palette to bring traveling, and I got some really nice and easy and quick looks out of it. And that is one of the things that I think I really like about this, because if you only stick to one side, you can do like a lot of different looks, but they're gonna be pretty easy, and you don't have to like overthink it, because so many of these shades just like go really nicely together. It goes very deep. It has some really nice shimmers, and I just enjoy this palette so much. And I'm so happy that I own it. And last time when I made my video with this palette was on sale. I don't know if they still have a sale, but definitely keep your eyes out on Plouise's website and see if they do have sale. Maybe sign up for like notifications. I know they just had like a random 40% off sale for everything in their store. Maybe it was even 50, but it was a really good deal. So if you can get their palettes on a nice discount, they're so worth the money. But this palette was quite expensive. I think it was like $75, maybe $80. You get a lot of eyeshadows though, and I'm so happy I bought it, because I've been using it so much and I don't want to put it down. Like, I want to keep using it. But it's so hard when you have so many other beautiful things that are in your collection that you kind of feel like you have to move around a little bit. You have to give love to other things too. So I know I can't be using this all the time, but this palette will probably be coming traveling with me quite often, because I do feel like there will be a little bit more traveling this year than last year, at least for me, and that is something that I'm super excited about. So yeah, that's gonna be it for today's ranking. Let me know if you were as surprised as I was about some of these, because I'm still laughing at myself. I'm like, Annette, like what have you turned into? Like, what is going on here? So I'm excited to see what's going to end up in my next ranking, because I do know the blend palette and the Surge palette that I've yet to use will probably end up very high, because I have had the best time with all of the palettes from Blend Bunny so far. So yeah, that's going to be it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see some other ranking videos, I put my playlist up on the screen. And if you're new, don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.